Good afternoon, Sergeants Majors. Welcome to my briefing titled Pushing Intellectual Boundaries. In it, I will argue that the academic requirements for senior non-commissioned officers should be increased. My name is Command Sergeant Major John Miller, and I am the Battalion Command Sergeant Major for the 11th Battalion, 100th Regiment, located at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. In today's briefing, I will talk about the original architect for the first educational revolution in the United States Army. We will talk about the development of soldiers from their first day in the Army through the development of them into a sergeant. And then we'll compare the development of young soldiers with the development of students as they progress through college. We'll then transition into the how we can increase the intellectual capacity for young NCOs so that they become senior enlisted advisors who are very capable. I will throw in a counterpoint comparing the professional careers of LeBron James and Stephen Curry, and then bring in the interesting case of Google. In the end, we will sum up with only 3 words: education expands minds. We'll start with the original architect for Army education. We have to go to the late 19th century. The Honorable Elihu Root was appointed as the Secretary of War in 1899. He saw the results of the United States following the Spanish-American War. He saw a disorganized group with poor leadership structure and a lack of professionalism and no military education to improve the ability of their soldiers. His most notable decisions were to increase the modernization and professionalization of the military as a whole. He began by restructuring the National Guard, which became an effective reserve force, and more importantly, he created the Army War College, which was designated as a location where advanced studies of doctrine could begin and could formalize the professional military education for officers. Now, as we have seen 200 years later, or 100 years later, the nature of soldiering has changed. Today, soldiers need to be much more agile and adaptive than they ever have in Army history. The non-commissioned officer, who is a key cog in this, is counted more heavily than ever to advise their commissioned officer counterparts in the commission of mission command. My thesis is that soldiers should seek and achieve broader, more intense education prior to promotion to senior positions, requiring greater intellectual capacity and responsibility. Now, what does it take to become a soldier? Well, first, a potential candidate for a soldier must meet certain requirements. First of all, they must be between the ages of 17 and 35. They must complete a high school or equivalent program prior to completely enlisting. They must be in generally good physical health and must be able to pass a medical screening exam. And finally, they must be a citizen or what is considered a permanent resident alien. That opens up U.S. Army participation to places like Guam and Puerto Rico. Now, from that, as a soldier begins to gain experience, they may be looking to take the next step in their career. So they'll be looking for promotion. The requirements for promotion across the board, number 1, a soldier must gain sufficient experience. There is statutory time and service requirements for these ranks. They must meet time and service obligations. They must display leadership potential, but then they must pass the U.S. Army's new educational gates, as described in the non-commissioned officer professional development system. We now call this the STEP program. What is the STEP program? STENP stand for Select, Train, Educate, and Promote. Soldiers must first be selected for promotion by their local promotion board. This process is initiated by the soldier. The soldier creates a promotion packet to which they submit to the board. If the board recommends them for promotion, They then become certified and validated through training, on-the-job training, and education, professional military education, so that they're fully qualified for both their MOS and their grade. After all of their requirements are met, they now become eligible to pin on the new rank and assume the position that they have been promoted to. Why did the Army create the STEP program? It was created to address the issues of soldiers deferring their professional military education due to the high operational tempo created by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, why are we calling for greater academic requirements? If we look at a sergeant, once a soldier has reached the E5 level, they have completed the Distributed Leader Course, or DLC Level 1, which is a 40-hour online block of coursework in a variety of military-specific subjects. Second, they attend the Basic Leader Course, which is a resident-style 4-week intensive course designed to give them their first real professional military education. This cycle of DLC and resident PME repeats for every single rank through Sergeant's Major. Now, if we compare this to a student, and for lack of a better word or better term, I have picked a business major, they can approach schooling in a variety of ways. They can do a traditional brick and mortar or resident style education, or they can transition into a more online style of education in which it benefits them in their time, in their career, and in their life needs. One of the newest topics or newest methods for pursuing education is a hybrid style, one in which that the student may meet with instructors face-to-face or in a small group setting, but also does a varied amount of work online. Typical course content for a business major may be anything from business law, accounting, finance, business logistics, economics, management, and marketing. Typically, a student graduation requirement ranges in the neighborhood, but on average, about 120 credit hours. Typically, it takes a student approximately 4 years to complete the requirements for a bachelor's degree in business, accounting, marketing, etc. Now, when we compare the two courses of rigor, what we find is that soldiers experience much less academic rigor in the same time as college students do. When we examine it further, we find that the amount of required written and oral communication is far less for soldiers. This is concerning as the soldiers progress through. Their lack of a high quantity of written and oral communication assessment holds them back or hampers them from being effective communicators later on as a senior enlisted advisor. The key difference is education versus training, and they are not the same thing. Webster's dictionary describes training as skills and knowledges and experiences acquired by one that trains. The U.S. Army is a world-class training organization. Soldiers receive many hours of training in their initial levels of training in basic combat training, their initial job training on advanced individual training, and later when they arrive at their units for the on-the-job training specific to their unit. Problem is, leaders are required to be more than trained individuals. So this is where education comes in. Webster's dictionary describes education as developing mentally, morally, or aesthetically, especially by instruction. This pushes soldiers out into the civilian education market. Leaders must be educated professionals. NCOs are leaders. Non-commissioned officers are leaders who train, and trainers must be critical thinkers. This education is the enhancement that increases their ability to think critically. Critical thinking allows soldiers to be better problem solvers. One of the newest concepts for increasing the ability for soldiers and citizens and students alike is called the innovator's mindset. As explained by George Couros, a teaching, learning, and leadership consultant, the innovator's mindset is a belief that abilities, intelligence, and talents develop so that they lead to the creation of new and better ideas. The example: on the obstacle course, there is an obstacle called the high wall. It is pretty straightforward. The wall many times is too high for most people to accomplish this task on their own. So the fixed mindset soldier may give up when the solution is not easily sought. The innovator's mindset would to look at the problem critically, take advantage of all available opportunities, and solve the problem. My conclusion is that leaders must possess the innovator's mindset. Innovation is defined or described as creating opportunities for senior leaders and subordinates. It is innovation that creates opportunities, and it sure looks like the same as exercising disciplined initiative. We find disciplined initiative in the mission command framework. Discipline, as defined through Army regulation, is the action in the absence of orders, when existing orders no longer fit the situation or when unforeseen opportunities or threats arise. This means problem solving in the absence of instruction. Exercising initiative creates opportunities. In order to achieve initiative, the requirements must be: leaders must be expected to lead, subordinates must be accepted to act. Now, the counterpoint. Why do athletes choose college versus going pro? Well, if we look at these two world-class athletes, perhaps the best at their positions, LeBron James went straight to the NBA from high school. Why is that? Turns out he's pretty good. He is arguably the best individual basketball player in history. All throughout, he has accumulated 3 NBA championships with 2 different teams. The counter to this is Stephen Curry. He received only 1 scholarship offer in high school to a little university called Davidson. He is arguably the best shooter in NBA history. He also has 3 NBA championships. Now, could Stephen Curry have played professional basketball right out of high school? No. It took him time to develop, which is why people go to college. They need time to develop their skills. Google provides a very interesting counterpoint. When asked to describe the makeup of his workforce and who he hires, Laszlo Bock, the senior vice president of people operations for Google, said GPAs are worthless as a criteria for hiring, and test scores are worthless. We found they don't predict anything. He went on to say that the proportion of people without any college education at Google has increased over time. That's not to say good grades are worthless completely. It is to say that if you get good grades in the skills they're looking for, that enhances your value. Google values 5 overall things. The top 2, general cognitive ability, which has nothing to do with GPA or IQ. And second, emergent leadership, not being the president of your local chess club, but rather being the leader when solutions are required. In conclusion, education leads to critical thinking and problem solving. Problem solving offers the ability to innovate or create opportunities. Creating opportunities is how we exercise initiative within the mission command framework. Innovative leaders thrive within the mission command framework because they are adaptive and agile when the mission dictates. In conclusion, soldiers should seek and achieve broader, more intense education prior to promotion to senior positions which require greater intellectual capacity and responsibility.